Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you guys for being here. I hope you guys are doing well. In today's video, we'll talk about a very important topic that will affect a lot of undocumented Filipino immigrants in the United States. Now, over the past couple of weeks, one of the main topics of discussion, not only here in the US, but in many parts of the world, including the Philippines, is the stricter immigration policy of President-elect Donald Trump. Now, I've gotten some messages on this one. Folks were asking me, how do you think will this affect those undocumented Filipino immigrants? Now, we call that in the Philippines TNT, those who are constantly hiding. Now, two of my relatives even asked me this question. Are you not scared that you might get deported because Trump is going to be in office? That's when I realized that a lot of people are really misinformed on this specific topic. Now, if you have heard Trump during the campaign, you've heard some of these plans, and we know, those of you who have listened to him talk about this, we know that immigration has always been his core issue, and he has made clear that he plans to follow through on sweeping promises he made on the topic throughout the 2024 campaign. On the campaign trail, Trump promised the largest deportation effort in American history. Now, there were five key points on this immigration plan. Now, some people call this Trump's immigration policy, which is interesting because a lot of this policies are already in place, but obviously they are not currently enforced in this current administration. Now, one of the top things that his newly appointed border czar, Thomas Homan, keeps reiterating on his numerous, media interviews is that the top priority for deportation are those who pose a threat to national security and have criminal records. Now, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, everybody should go through the vetting process because the vetting process really is that filtering system. You can't just let everybody in. That is the reality. And if there are people who are here illegally who have criminal records, especially those who have ties to some terrorist activity, they should be deported ASAP. No questions asked. I mean, I don't even understand why some people would be against this because this is not only for the security of citizens, but also for the safety and security of those immigrants who wants to settle here in the US. So that this policy makes a lot of sense. Now, number two, undocumented immigrants will not receive benefits like public housing and shelter, food stamps, health care, and welfare checks. Again, makes a lot of sense. I mean, the US government should prioritize its own citizens first. Again, these are policies that makes a lot of sense, and that's probably the reason why Trump won the election in a big way because a lot of Americans agree with these policies. Next, the southern border will be closed to asylum seekers while the catch and release practice of releasing migrants while they await immigration hearings will be suspended. I remember during the Trump's first term, they have this wait in Mexico policy. That worked really well. I'm not sure why Biden decided to change that. This catch and release, again, it's very dangerous because, again, you do have to have a vetting process. And it's true, there's a lot of people who are legitimately here. Who are asylum seekers, but you can't be sure that 100% of these people coming here are all asylum seekers. That's why you have to go through the vetting process. And apparently right now there's about 2 million people who are unaccounted for. I mean, once they hear, did you just release them? We don't know where they are, what they're doing, what they're actually here for. That's very dangerous. So the next one is birthright citizenship, acquiring citizenship by being born in the US. This is for children of undocumented immigrants, and apparently they will be denied. Tourists who give birth in the US will no longer be allowed to extend their visa, and for the baby to acquire citizenship, one of the parents must be a US citizen or a resident. I don't think a lot of countries accept this birthright citizenship. I think Canada also accept this, but I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think even in the Philippines, I mean, at least one parents have to be a citizen or at least a resident. I'm gonna check on that. But I mean, the problem with this is a lot of people will take advantage of that, have been taken advantage of this. People who come here who are already pregnant, knowing that they're about to have a baby in the next couple of months, or for those who come here and then intentionally get pregnant with the hopes that they're gonna get that pathway to citizenship through their children. Next, federal funding will also be blocked for sanctuary cities and counties that allow undocumented immigrants to stay. Under Title 42, which is a public health rule that began in 2020 during the pandemic, border authorities can send back migrants, including children, to their countries of origin. I mean, a lot of these sanctuary cities and counties are located in states like California, New York, Chicago. A lot of these places are having a lot of problems when it comes to not having enough funding or just shortage of funding for their own citizens. And if you have watched those town hall meetings in Chicago, that is the big problem there. You know, a lot of their citizens can't access health care. They can't get any help for their own people, their own citizens, but they are able to provide housing and health care and even spending money for the illegal immigrants. And that's why the people there, the citizens there, are very, very upset about this. So, how will Trump's immigration plan affect the undocumented Filipino immigrants in the US? Now, looking at the key points on his plan, looks like there's one specific plan that will affect Filipinos who are here illegally or who are here staying in the US illegally because they're undocumented. So that plan is the birthright citizenship, because obviously a lot of these Filipinos have settled here, they have families and they have children. And if this plan is enforced, they're going to be separated from their children who are US citizens. Now, the rest of the list on this plan looks like it's not really going to have an impact on Filipinos, because there's a little bit of a difference here. Filipinos who are here undocumented, a lot of them got to the United States using legal means, because every single Filipinos who come here have to have a visa. You can't just fly here and then get in. You know, that's not possible. And it's not just like a border you can cross. Obviously, you have to fly. You get into an airport. As soon as you get into the airport, you're gonna be talking to an immigration officer. So a lot of Filipino immigrants, they got into the United States using legal means, but they become undocumented, or in the Philippines we call that tago ng tago, someone who's constantly hiding because obviously they violated the terms of the visas they've used. Of course, there is an exception to this. Those who came here using fraudulent documents, obviously they really came here using illegal means, because that is illegal, obviously. So these policies will obviously have potential ramifications on Filipinos who are in the US illegally. As I mentioned, many have overstayed visas, worked without authorization, or even arrived using fraudulent documents. Now, I want to mention this too. A lot of these visas have limitations, and the problem is when Filipinos use them, for example, they came here using a tourist visa, obviously that have a time frame. You know, you can only stay a certain period of time. If you violate the terms of that visa, you overstayed, then you're here undocumented at that point. And even with a fiancé visa, for example, you have 90 days to get married. If you don't get married within that time period, you're supposed to go back home. If you don't, you're going to be deported. So again, a lot of Filipinos who are here, considered as undocumented, when they got into the United States, they got in using legal means, but then they violated the terms of their visas, and that's when it becomes a problem. Now, a lot of them entered the country using tourist visa. I heard of a lot of people who waited until they got deported. Now, completely taking away all chances of ever legally returning to the United States. That is why, in anticipation of this stricter immigration policies, Ambassador Jose Manuel Romualdez encouraged undocumented Filipinos to leave voluntarily to avoid the risk and disruptions of forced deportation, which could result in severe consequences such as blacklisting and permanent bans from re-entering the U.S. He underscored that voluntary leaving provides a more dignified and manageable solution for affected individuals. According to ABS-CBN News, the ambassador emphasized the urgency for undocumented Filipinos to carefully evaluate their options amid limited pathways to legalize their status under anticipated immigration crackdowns. He reiterated the importance of complying with immigration laws for those intending to remain in the country, urging proactive decisions to avoid the challenges of deportation. Again, they're encouraging those undocumented Filipino immigrants to go back home voluntarily because once you get caught, you're going to get deported, you get blacklisted. You're not going to get a chance to get back in the United States. All right, so number two, this policy shift will definitely have an impact on the processing and procedures. Changes to visa processing standards will significantly impact timelines and approval rates under Trump. As they implement these restrictive measures and heightened compliance requirements, I am sure that they will also implement stricter eligibility criteria, elevated financial requirements for families, and increased scrutiny on visa processing, which will result in longer visa processing and approval. And of course, at first, it is going to be challenging because obviously it's going to slow things down. However, if they are successful in implementing these policies, this should streamline the process in the future. This will not only help the US government and the US citizens, Americans, but it will also help the immigrants coming in. If the process is more organized, they will be able to approve visas at a much faster rate. And you know what? A lot of these violations, for example, tourist visa violations, the overstaying, all of that, when Filipinos and other immigrants do this, it just makes it much harder for others to go through that process because now they're heightening, they're tightening this policies. It's much harder to get in, and then they add more requirements to that because that process didn't work. People still violated that, so now we're gonna tighten it up more. It's much harder for others. It just ruins other people's chances of getting in, to be very honest. Now, number three, this policy shift will minimize cases of human trafficking and abuse. And I think this is very important, especially for those Filipinos coming in here using fraudulent documents. The enhanced vetting will be a big deterrent for illegal activities. Legal immigration is not easy and is very expensive. Those who went through the process, we know that. It's very rigorous and it takes a long time. And again, the nice thing about going through the vetting process is that the person petitioning you is literally, basically, liable for you. So the liability is not on the US government, but on the person who's petitioning you. So they're not only just doing your background check, but also the person who's petitioning you. So it's very good process if it's enforced. Excuse me. I also think that this, Trump's immigration plan will give more opportunities for skilled Filipino workers to come to the US. I've heard of him talking about this before. He said, I want immigrants to come here, but I want them to come here legally. And he wants specifically those who can contribute to the economy of the country. And I think Americans also want that. Actually, Musk and Ramaswamy talked about this. They're talking specifically about the H-1B visa, and some people also mentioned the merit-based system, basically prioritizing those, talented professionals. Obviously, they're going to come here, they're going to contribute their talent, mostly profession, either doctors, teachers, what else, healthcare providers. And I mean, there's a little bit of a spot between Musk and other Republicans because especially those who are focused on the America First agenda. I mean, I agree with that. We should prioritize our own citizens, give them jobs. But if we don't have talents for that, I mean, we don't have a choice but to outsource. I'm talking about specifically if we need engineers, we need teachers, we need healthcare workers. Apparently, according to some reports, most American students are taking up psychology and humanities, classes and degrees. I mean, we need scientists, we need engineers, we need teachers, we need nurses. And if we don't have that talent, we're going to have to outsource them. And I think that's a good opportunity for Filipino skilled workers to get into the United States, that merit-based system. And a lot of Filipinos are skilled workers. There's a lot of nurses, healthcare providers. There's a lot of teachers. And I think a lot of states are already hiring Filipinos. I think Chicago has done that, actually. I've seen documentaries of Filipino teachers working in some rural areas in the US because, again, there's not enough teachers. All right, so to summarize this conversation, I think eventually Trump's plan will have a good impact. I mean, the first couple of Well, he's only in office for 4 years, but I think the first a year and a half is going to be tough. It's going to be a mess. But I mean, the goal is to clean up. That's the problem. It's gotten so bad. They're going to have to clean up first. But then immigration itself obviously there needs to be some changes there on how they process these visas, because apparently it's a mess. I mean, right now, even those who are trying to get visas, it's taking forever because everything is so backed up or backlogged that they have to catch up. And hopefully they can streamline the process. That will make it that itself, if they get things organized, hopefully they can process things a little bit more faster. But again, the Philippine government is encouraging Filipinos, undocumented Filipino immigrants, to just voluntarily leave the country so you don't ruin your chances of ever getting in back to the United States. Okay, I'm gonna finish this video here. I thank you for watching. See you on my next one. Bye, everyone.